21st of January 2022.
I've always wanted to be a performer. That kind of just felt right. Oh my God. Can you see me blushing?
From news.com.au.
I'm Andrew Bucklow, and I've got news for you. Every now and then on I've Got News for You, we like to do a Person of Interest episode where we profile someone who's caught our attention. Today's guest, well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this guy is going to be one of the biggest stars in Australia in the next 5 years. Mark my words, okay? His name is Mitch Churi. He's 26 years old and he already has his own national radio show on KIIS FM called The Night Show with Mitch Churi. Now, he's going to tell us how he worked his way up from being Kyle and Jackie O's barista to becoming a radio star in his own right. Plus, he's going to open up about some of his most awkward celebrity encounters. Mitch Churi, radio superstar, thank you so much for coming on I've Got News for You.
Oh my God. Can you see me blushing through the Zoom camera? I hate compliments, and I'm so bad at taking compliments. Great at giving them. Great small talker, schmoozer, but I hate taking them. I can't do it.
Well, I think you're going to have to get used to it because your career is on the up and up. But I want to go back to the very beginning, okay? Have you always loved radio?
You know what? I have. I actually have. My mum has actually always loved radio. Like, I have, as far back as I can remember, I have this one vivid memory. I say like I was like 12. Like, I don't know why I'm pretending I was in the womb when mum was listening to like Ray Hadley in the 80s. But my mum, we were on the way to Taronga Zoo, like going to Taronga Zoo, and we were listening to Kyle and Jackie O. I was probably 10 or 11. And mum called up and won tickets to Taronga Zoo. Like, that's how much of a tight ass she was at the time. She's like, we're going, but I want to retroactively win more tickets so we can go again for free. And she pulled over on the side of the road on the Eastern Distributor in Sydney, and she won the tickets and was live with Kyle and Jackie O. And it was sort of this thing of like, because I don't know if you've ever called through on the radio. You've been on Kyle and Jackie O, actually. Yes, you have. You have to turn the radio off, so then there's no feedback because the show's in delay, so everything has to be quiet. And I'm like, what is going on? There's magic happening in the car. Mum finished the call, won the tickets, then we turned the radio on and heard her 30 seconds later. I was like, what is this madness? And I honestly think that was the inception of my love for radio in that moment.
Now, you also, as a youngster, got on air with Hamish and Andy, didn't you? Tell me about that.
I did. That came about just from listening. I remember we were driving. God, I used to, when you don't drive, you're in the front seat of the passenger car with your parents all the time. So I was in the front seat with my mum and Hamish and Andy. It was at the time when Kevin Rudd was Prime Minister and he was using taxpayer dollars to hire a really, really expensive babysitter for his kids. And Hamish and Andy were doing this whole story arc about, well, we can babysit for free. Like, let's write Kevin Rudd a letter, but how do we relate to the youth? How do we relate to his kid? So they wanted kids to call up. So then I called through and a classic smartass. I think I rapped. I don't know what like a K Rudd is no dud or something stupid. And Hamish and Andy ate it up. And then they got me back and kept getting me to come back. And I think they coined the little segment as Mitch's wise words, and I called through, and I think there was one point where I was really bad. Like, I think I got really ahead of myself and really cocky and had no jokes, and they're like, oh yeah, cut this kid, he's really thinks he's part of the show now. So they never called me back. But yeah, that was on the same week of my year 7 swimming carnival. I'll never forget. Didn't get to swim, didn't do the relay because I was on with Hamish and Andy. What a wanker as a kid.
So you obviously had this passion for radio of an early age. So after school, did you want to get straight into radio? Did you go to uni to study radio? What did you do?
No, so this is so weird. Radio was always my backup. Like, I went to my backup first. I always said to my parents, it will be my backup. It's my fallback. If theatre doesn't come through, I'll do radio. So I really wanted to perform, be on stage. So I left school and I went to uni, the University of Wollongong, lasted one semester or trimester. It was like I was pregnant. It was very weird. I don't know why we did trimesters. I was so confused. I was like 90 weeks in a year. I'm like, this is how things work. Maybe in Wollongong time runs differently because they're so deep south. But I was like, this doesn't seem right. And Wollongong Uni it's a bizarre place. I don't know if you've ever been to the Gong.
I've never been.
Oh my God, well stay put. It's like in the rainforest. It's really like Avatar-like, and it's nestled in the bush. And I was hating the course I was doing. I was doing a double degree because this is how intensely determined I was to, nail theatre and fall back in radio. I was doing a double degree in performance theatre with a major in media communications, just in case. I hated it. And it was too much work. I was so depressed. And then there was a Subway on campus because it's so far removed from any Westfield shopping centre that they need to custom build a Subway. And I went to Subway, it's a true story, and I ordered a foot-long Italian BMT, Italian herbs and cheese, and this wild goose from the bushes emerged out of the swamp-like lake that was in the middle of the uni and grabbed the wrapper of my foot-long bit and ripped it off the table. And I shit you not, I deferred that day. I'm like, that's the only sign I needed to quit this degree. So I left and I moved to New York at 19 and studied acting, theatre, at Atlantic Theatre Company, and loved it. Absolutely loved it.
How long were you in the States for?
I was there for the better part of a year, almost the 10 months all up. I did the course in New York, and then I went to LA. And I have this, I'm sure this will come up later, but I have this affinity or yearning to be a late night talk show host. I'm obsessed with the late night talk show hosts in the US, and I studied them all and their career trajectory, and they all did improv. They all went to the Groundlings, and Conan O'Brien studied improv at the Groundlings. Jimmy Fallon went there. Jimmy Kimmel did improv. So I thought, well, I need to go to LA and I need to do improv comedy. So I did the acting degree in New York. It wasn't a degree, it was more of a course. And then I went to LA and did improv, and they were the best few months of my life. I loved improv in LA. It was great.
All right, so you came back to Australia after you did those courses. How did you eventually end up in radio then?
It's so funny. So I was going to do theatre, but I had no plan, right? So I had acting, I studied, I'd done improv, I really enjoyed it. And I moved back here, and the course that I was doing in New York was a two-parter. So I had to do the first, 7 months, come back. I was going to break over the Christmas and December break, come back to New York, and then do the other half of the degree. But I ran out of money, so I came back to save up, and I needed a casual job for 6 weeks. And obsessed with radio, an opportunity came up through my dad had a friend who was the street team recruiter at ARN.
Right.
And I was 19. I think I just turned 20. And he said, radio's great, mate. You want to get into it? You want to work? Let's get you there for an interview. So I had an interview with the street team at ARN. And at the KIIS studios, at the same place I still broadcast now. And it was a 10-minute interview. It was shocking. I'm from a Shire boy, so it took me an hour and a half, probably 2 hours. I went through too many tunnels. I think I went through the same tunnel twice. I just turned around and was going in a loop. And then it's a 10-minute interview. It was so short, I thought I didn't get it. And then I got a call the next week, and they're like, yeah, you're hired. You're on the street. Can you drive a car? I said, yeah. They said, it's a Jeep. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I can drive a car. And then I get a job on the street team, and the rest is history. I've been there ever since.
Now, street teamers are largely behind the scenes. When did you get your first taste of on-air activity?
This is crazy. So I went in and I knew what I wanted. Like, I knew I wanted to be on air. I knew I didn't want to be on street team or a producer or in promotions. I wanted to be on air at the radio station. So I'm like, I don't know how it's going to happen. I'll just put my best foot forward. And this was at the time when, this was 2015, 2016, when Snapchat was really big. Instagram didn't even have stories. Like, this was the yesteryear. And everyone would Snapchat story. So as would I. So I was on the street team. I was Snapchat storying and, being a fool out at KIIS events. And I was probably with the station for 3 weeks. And one of the fellow street teamers, her sister worked on the Kyle and Jackie O show. She was the digital producer. So she was watching my Snapchat story in the pit, which is where the Kyle and Jackie O show broadcast and all the producers sit. And the content director said, what are you laughing at? Now working there, I can fully see how this would have happened. Anyone else funnier than what's being broadcast? Like, get them in here. We either need them or we need them killed. Put a hit out on them. So they said, come up. He wants to meet you. DB wants to meet you, the content director. And I said, okay, what's DB? Like, what does it stand for? I want all the details. And I went up and unbeknownst to me, they were planning this segment called the Cash Cock. They had this premise for it, but they didn't have a cock. So they saw me and said, we've got ours, we got the cock. I actually had to, in the pit, so basically it's where all the producers sit, and there's about 6 desks in a semicircle, and the guests sit there before the show goes on, and you can watch, it's like you're at an aquarium, you can watch Kyle and Jackie O in their studio doing their show. And the show had finished, and Kyle was in the studio tinkering around, planning the next day's show. Jackie was gone, but the production team was there, and I was asked, I hear you're pretty funny. I'd worked there for 3 weeks. But I'd just come back from LA. My improv was flowing, and they said, "We want you to be a chicken be a rooster for us, mate. Just give us your." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" No, just be a rooster, mate. You just be a rooster. Just give us your best rooster. And I'm like, "Is this really what?" Okay, sure. So I'm a theatre boy, so I literally pop a squat, and I pop my arms out, and then I just cluck around this radio station. Genuinely, they think it's the funniest thing they've ever seen. Low bar, and then they go, "Great," or "Hilarious," and then all right, so what's on the show tomorrow? We need to start playing. And I'm like, do I just stay here? Like, do I need to? I was like looking I've never met Kyle before. I'm like, that's Kyle Sandilands. Like with my arms, I'm half squatted. And then someone's like, you can go, like just run away. So I left, and then a couple of days later, they're like, great, you booked for the Cashcock. They love you. They want you. And that was 3 weeks in starting at ARN.
And I believe that segment involved you dressing up as a giant chicken with cash strapped to your body and then telling the listeners where you were, and then they would come and track you down and chase you to get the money off your body.
Yeah, wow, that should be my Instagram bio. That's a mouthful. That is true, yes. So I had $1,000 cash, and it sort of developed. It got a cult following. It's actually, I still think, I don't want to speak for him, but it's one of Kyle Sandilands' favourite segments. That's why it still happens to this day, and I'm 7 years in. I have my own show, but I'm still dressing up as the chug. But yes, that is what happens. And I get it actually started as like a mock of the cash cow. You know how that works on Channel 7. I'd knock on someone's door, and if they answered the phone with "I want the cock-a-doodle-doo," they got $1,000. But that wasn't violent enough. So then about a year in, they're like, no, we want him tackled to the ground, and that's how you win the money. So it developed from there, yeah.
Alrighty, Mitch, talk to me about your career progression at KIIS FM. I mean, how did you work your way up the ladder to eventually land your own show?
Okay, wow. I mean, how long do we have? I don't know how it happened. I really don't. I honestly don't. I'm very lucky. Like, I've had a lot of luck. But I think the first 2 years I worked at ARN, I think I worked like 310 days. Like, I had no time off. Like, yeah. I was there every day. Well and truly, like just hours into the station. But mind you, the Cashcock, right, would only happen for maybe 2 weeks every 3 or 4 months. So maybe all up in a year, there was 6 weeks of Cashcock. So I had to fill the time and network and connect with people in the building quite a bit. So the groundskeeper, Lou, who is still there, he tinkers around the building and he fixes the toilets. And when a tampon gets clogged in the toilet on level 2, he goes and fixes it. And he had to go on break at one point. And I remember I'm always around. And they said, we need to hire someone to replace Lou. I said, I'll do it. I'll replace Lou. So this is a true story. For about 3 weeks, I replaced the groundskeeper, and I'd have to get the executive newspapers that were delivered at 3 a.m. every morning in plastic wrap, and I had to cut them open and put them on their desk. And I was like a janitor in a Disney movie, like waddling around the building at 21 with jangly keys, like I was Shawshank Redemption on my pocket. And then from there, I was asked if I could make coffee, to which I said yes, to which was a lie. I'd never made a coffee in my life. They were hiring for the Kyle and Jackie O barista role. And I was I was Mitch the coffee bitch for about 6 months. And I just sat on my computer and watched YouTube, how to steam milk, how to froth milk. And Jackie was like, I finally nailed it. And Jackie's like, babe, I think I'm going to be an almond milk girl now. I'm like, fucking hell. I've just mastered skim, and now I've got to learn to froth almond. So I was the barista. I mean, look, there's just been hundreds of jobs, and the whole time, really, I guess if you want to know how it happened, I just kept saying I'll do it. I just kept saying yes. But I always expressed that I want to learn more and I want to be in the industry. And I think that they were receptive to that. And then I started junior producing on a show called The Thinker Girls, and I was answering phones for them, all free, mind you. I wasn't paid for any of this. And I would answer phones. I really learnt the ropes there. I would produce segments that have a guest on. I remember they had... what's Mbop? Hanson. Hanson's Mbop. Yeah, they had Hanson on, and they said, can you write up questions for Hanson? I'm like, what the fuck's a Hanson? I'm 20. So I had to write questions for Hanson. Then Hanson come in, and you bring him in the building, and you're hands-on with talent, and it just taught me a lot. And then from producing for free, I then got a junior producing role. I started doing live crosses when I was on the street team to the Workday studio, the announcer that's on during the day. And then I sort of made friends with Gordy, who is still my friend to this day, who was the Workday announcer. I said, can you teach me how to panel and how to press all the buttons in the studio? And he did, and he taught me. And then it just really went from there.
So talk to me about the moment that you get told by the content director, Mitch, we want you to host the National Night Show on KIIS FM. Talk to me about that moment. What does it feel like?
It's pretty wild, but it also kind of feels like I've always been a person, I'm very goal-orientated, and I set myself goals. And it's odd. It was sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, it happened. Like, that's what I always wanted. And I always wanted nights, going back to the late night thing. I always just felt like that's where I sort of slot in, especially while there's Kyle and Jackie O and we've got a drive show. Like, we're set every other time slot. Yeah. So really the only slot that I could see myself in at KIIS was nights. So that was where I was always determined to be. And then when it happened, it kind of just felt right. Like, it really, it felt right. And I was really, just excited, and I was ready to go. It was almost like I was waiting to do it, you know.
One of the big perks of being a commercial radio host is getting to meet a lot of celebrities. Just do a bit of name dropping for me, Mitch. Who are some of the A-list stars that you've spoken to?
Oh my God, I hate this. You'd think I'd be really like prepared for this. And like all my friends, when I go out with my boyfriend, they're like, "Who's the biggest star?" I'm like, I don't know. It's just I don't like to make a mental note. It feels weird, but here we go. I'll do it. I think my favourite interview I've ever done was with Miley Cyrus.
Right. Oh, God, icon.
Right? Icon, and just so intimidating. Like, there's so much gravitas around Miley, especially my generation. You know, I grew up with Hannah Montana, and she was a Disney star, and she was a pop star. So I had 20 minutes with Miley Cyrus, and it was such a brilliant chat, and it was just fun. It was just such a different experience, but I loved Miley.
Okay, so that's your best celebrity interview. In this business, you always get asked who is your worst celebrity interview. Just a couple of weeks ago on I've Got News for You, all the entertainment writers spoke about their worst. Mine was Chris Rock. It just didn't go well. Who was yours?
God, there's two that pop out.
Brilliant.
Like, there's only two. Like, no, there's about a dozen, but two that I'm willing to talk about now until my trauma heals. I'll give you two. One was Lizzo, and it was at the Shangri-La in Sydney. Big artist. This was at the height of her career, maybe 18 months ago, and it was a face-to-face in a hotel room in a junket, and she was just not having it. She was not in the mood, no. And she sat down and she's like, "Let's hurry this up. I'm exhausted and my blood sugar's low." So then I was like, "Oh, well, we're in a hotel room. Like, let's get Lizzo some Oreos, you know, trying to." And she went, "Don't do that. I don't want Oreos. Don't get them to get me food." I'm like, "Oh, I'm pissed off. Lizzo. I was trying to get you an Oreo." Like, "I'll have one too, mate. Like, I'll have 11. You can have one." Like, so that I pissed her off, and the interview was off to a rocky start from that point. But the worst one I've ever done is I've spoken about this before. This is when I was flown by Warner Music to Hamilton Island to do an exclusive interview with Dua Lipa, who is, again, icon.
Absolutely.
Sensational. And this was before Future Nostalgia dropped. It was her biggest album, and she was really the hot ticket. So we went to Hamilton Island. I'd never been before. So there's these giant skyscrapers. It's really big, and it was off-season, right? There are these big towers for hotels for peak season when they have all the tourists, but it was off-season. So there was like no one in the towers. There was like no lights on, like maybe 3 lights on scattered. It was very drab. The sun was setting. There were bats in the air. And a lot of the locals that live on Hamilton Island also work there because they can't travel anywhere else to work. So a lot of them are young, a lot of them are children. So I'm just gathering all this information the night before I interview Dua Lipa. I go and sit down with Dua Lipa, and Ash London from the Hit Network, a good friend of mine, she's a sensational interviewer, interviews Dua Lipa and goes first and asks all the same questions that I have prepped to ask Dua Lipa. And I go, shit, like I can't ask these questions. She's just been asked them. But in reality, they get asked the same questions day in, day out. Totally fine. But I freak out. So I throw all my questions out the window. Ash finishes. They kiss best friends on for lunch in a week. Yeah, I'll see you at your house. Yeah, I'm like, they're such good friends. I've never met Dua before. I sit down. She's ethereal. I don't even think she's sitting. She's just hovering. And I kiss her on the cheek and I go, how are you? And she goes, good. And I go, hey, you know, like I don't have any questions in my head. I go, how beautiful is Hamilton Island? She goes, it's stunning. I go, yeah, but don't you think, Dua, like Lentine, like, don't you think it's kind of giving North Korean vibes? And she goes, excuse me, what do you mean? I said, North Korea, like the towers, like no one's in those towers. Like, what are they for? There's bats in the sky, like it's and all the staff are children, like it's horrific. And she's like, well, considering Hamilton Island are paying for my entire trip, I don't think we should relate it to North Korea. I'm like, yeah, you're right, yeah, good point. She went, why don't we start the interview? I think we should start. Oh my God, I was mortified. Ash London was watching to this day. She texts me every now and again, comments on all my Instagram photos. It's not North Korea though, is it? Like, just, it's the joke that keeps on giving. That's the worst interview I've ever had.
Now, Mitch, you're 26 years old. You've got your own radio show. It airs on KIIS Sydney and KIIS Melbourne on weeknights from 7 to 10 p.m. Where do you want to go from here?
Right, to bed. Like, I'm exhausted. Oh, then I've just finished Mitch to Midnight, which is 9 to midnight. Now I'm doing 7 to 10. You'd think I'd have more energy, but I don't know. I've always wanted to do TV. Like I've always wanted to be a performer. Like I've always wanted to do theatre. So I would love, as a bold statement, I don't know how I'll do it, but I'd love to bring late night television to Australia or back to Australia. I think it was dead there for a time, and you know we had Rove back in the heyday, which I was obsessed with, and then it sort of it faded out. It wasn't in right now. It wasn't in, but now I think in the age of TikTok and social media and stars, like celebrity is back, bigger than and better better than ever. I think a late night show really could succeed in the Australian market, and I'm sort of trying to do the groundwork now to solidify myself with talent, with names, with artists, to make that happen. So that's the goal and the seeds that I'm planting now.
Okay, something we love to do with our persons of interest each week on I've Got News for You is ask the same final 5 questions. Mitch Churi, number 1, what's something not many people know about you?
Oh God. I'm terrified about losing my hair. Like, actually, I lose sleep over losing my hair. Like, once I lose my hair, another reference of Bert Newton, my career is over. I'll have to invest in a glue-on toupee, or I'll go to Thailand and get plugs. Like, that is I'm on so many vitamins. That is my biggest fear.
What profession other than your own, and we'll call your own entertainment, acting and radio, would you like to attempt?
You know what? This is true. I was on Gumtree. I've just come back from holidays. I was scrolling through Gumtree on my break, and I really want to buy a pottery wheel.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like in Ghost.
Like Ghost, yeah.
Well, not just like Ghost, but the same premise. I really want to buy a wheel, and I'd love to make my own pottery. I think that'd be really fun, and like get a little Etsy and sell them and make pots and make them for my friends. How nice would it be, Andrew, on your birthday for me to go, happy birthday, and you open a handmade mug?
Yeah, it'd be amazing. Money would be better, but yeah. Okay, well, definitely.
Good to know. Noted.
Okay, who's someone that you'd love to meet and why?
I'd love to meet Conan O'Brien. Mm-hmm. He's a comedic influence for me, and I've just admired him for so long. The same token, David Letterman I think would be great. I'm a big comedy buff. I love Jerry Seinfeld. I love Fallon, all the late night guys. Chelsea Handler, I think Chelsea's amazing. I would have said Ellen about 18 months ago, but with the current climate, I don't want to risk my career by saying Ellen. But anyone in that vein, the successful comedians amaze me, especially ones that have had career longevity, because that is tough to continue to reinvent yourself. So, one of those guys.
What's your favourite film of all time and why?
Oh, my God. It's E.T.
Oh,
E.T.
is that
my
right?
Film.
My boyfriend is afraid of E.T.
E.T. the film or the alien?
Well, both, I think. He just can't stand to watch it. It freaks him out.
They go hand in hand. I did rewatch it though with my boyfriend who'd never seen it for the first time about a year ago, and it's really odd. Like, it's a weird film. And then E.T. just dies. Like, I think I forgot as a child.
Spoiler.
Well, I mean, it's 30 years old. Grow up if you haven't seen E.T. yet. They essentially suck the life out of E.T. and he's in a river all shriveled up and white. That's traumatic. It's a horrific film, but it's just got nostalgia for me. I love seeing Baby Drew Barrymore, and it's classic, like American blockbuster. I love E.T.
Final question. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
It's tough. You get a lot of unsolicited advice, in our opinion. Like, my uncle on the weekend was like, I saw someone that looked just like you down at Crust Pizza in Cronulla, and you should go and see him because he is you but 40 kilos lighter, and I think you really, I shit you not, that's what said. I'm like, I don't want that advice. Why would you tell me that? He works at Crust Pizzeria. I've got a radio show. I'm fine being fat. Thank you very much. So I get a lot of unsolicited advice from family and friends. I don't know who gave me this advice, but actually Jackie O has given me this advice when I filled in for Kyle when he had one of his infamous sick days. She just said, be yourself. You have to be authentic, because on this medium, you do one thing wrong, or you think about what you're going to say for 1 second, and the audience know. They're onto you. They go, no, that's not who he is. That's fake. So authenticity, I think, is key, and I've been told that many a times. And I think the moment or the day of the show that I sort of clicked into my full self, which is hard coming from doing music shifts and announcing to a personality-based show, it's hard to make that change. But the moment you do, and the moment you lock on to your authenticity, I think is when it feels right, and when you really can come into your own. So authenticity. And I was told once that not to be cynical. I think cynical comes across terribly on broadcast medium, so I've tried not to be cynical. Sarcastic, very much so. But cynicism, out the window. I don't know who told me that.
I'm telling you, he's going to be a huge star, that Mitch Churi. Now, if you liked what you heard today, make sure you check out a podcast that Mitch co-hosts with a TikTok comedian named Mitchell Coombs. It's called Is It Just Me? You'll find that very, very funny. That's it for this episode of I've Got News for You. I'll chat to you again next week.